Hi, everyone. So, as you may know, I run an international compassion training program, one that is for everyone and one that applies in very beautiful, practical ways to our everyday lives. It's a program I created to help meet the longing for a different world, a more compassionate world. And since that program began several years ago, I've learned a lot about how much compassion is misunderstood in our culture. So I'm making a few short videos to help clarify a few of those misconceptions, to bring more clarity to what compassion actually is, so that more people can understand the value, the importance, and the power of it in our lives and in our societies. If you enjoy this video, please be sure to like and subscribe below. That way you'll be notified when I post new ones, and that also helps me reach more people with these teachings. So what I want to clarify in this video is the difference between empathy and compassion. I think understanding the difference will be helpful to everyone, but for those who are in caretaker roles or who are generously participating in activism in any way, I think you'll find this distinction especially helpful. I think these ideas will help you participate in the world with more longevity without getting burnt out. So let's start with some clear definitions. Empathy is the ability to feel the feelings of another. In this case, we're going to talk about suffering. So the ability to feel the suffering of another. It's to feel into another person's experience as if it were your own. While compassion is the ability to recognize the suffering of another while feeling an internal desire to alleviate that suffering. It's to feel for another being and to feel compelled to do something about their suffering specifically. Empathy is a capacity most animals, including humans, have, and it's a fundamental binding ingredient to all of our relationships. Our ability to empathize often is what awakens or ignites compassion. However, empathizing with suffering in excessive doses can be so debilitating that we eventually become unable to take action to alleviate the suffering. If we enter into what's called empathetic distress, we internally collapse or we burn out, and we can no longer support, help, or serve. In other words, excessive empathy can get in the way of compassion or compassionate action. People who are caregivers often speak about compassion fatigue, but I think what they really suffer from would be more accurately described as empathy fatigue or empathetic distress. They tend to take on the suffering of others to the point that they eventually have to shut down to the suffering of others because it becomes unbearable. Compassion, on the other hand, does not fatigue us. It's a force that fuels us. With compassion, we have just enough connection to another being's suffering to stay fully engaged, but intentionally maintain a sense of self so that we can stay strong and do something about the suffering. We stay connected to our inner resources of strength and love so that we can serve in some way in the diminishment of suffering instead of taking on all of the suffering. What matters most with compassion is alleviating the suffering, and we can't do that if we take it all on. So compassion requires us to do what we need to do to stay strong, resilient, and of service. And that includes maintaining a sense of separate self, even while connecting with another. There's a beautiful intentionality to compassion, and that intention is a commitment, a devotion to serve in some way in the cessation of suffering or the diminishment of suffering. It's a commitment that requires that we ourselves stay fortified and resilient so that we don't burn out and don't become too fatigued to stay with our intention. So let's talk about what healthy, resilient compassion can look like in a practical way. So let's say, for example, you are fighting against and bearing witness to injustice. Here's how what I've shared about compassion versus empathy can apply. Number one, to stay in compassion and stay in service or support, it's important to make sure you feel grounded in your body. Whenever you start to lose this sense of embodiment, you have to temporarily withdraw your outward attention, bring it back in, and get back into your own body. And then number two, with your attention drawn back in, take a moment to reconnect with your intentions. What is the intention of your engagement? Is it to soothe? Is it to bear witness, to educate, to spread awareness, to apply pressure to lawmakers? What are you actually doing? There are many vital positions to choose from in these cases. So choose the one or the ones that you are best at. This intentionality can help you stay healthily engaged while preventing you from overdoing it in any way that would leave you unable to continue to fulfill these intentions. Number three, also while your attention is drawn back in, take a moment to consciously acknowledge and accept what is outside your control so that you don't get lost in a feeling of helplessness. I highly recommend writing down what is outside your control and what is within your field of influence, because there will always be plenty of things within your field of influence, especially when you remember that we are doing this in numbers. And this will help you stay focused there on your field of influence instead of what is beyond your control. And this is an essential part of staying engaged. So get clear on what's outside of your control and where you have influence. And then number four, when you're ready, while staying attuned to yourself, extend your attention back out with that intentionality to the ways that you are choosing to participate in something. It can be bearing witness, raising awareness, making phone calls, making donations, having hard conversations on a more personal scale, actions that slow down or block the injustice, or whatever else is in your power to do. All positions are valuable. Choose the ones you're most equipped for. And always remember, it's not selfish or any less caring to maintain this healthy practice to intentionally lean toward what I've defined as compassion so that you can play the long game. On the contrary, this is how we use our full heart and intelligence to be as effective as we can be in any of the ways we choose to engage and tend to suffering. So I hope that's helpful. If you have any questions or comments or thoughts, please leave them below. I would love to hear what you have to say, and I would love to help if I can.